Kia ora everyone, my name is Simon Walsh. I'm from New Zealand. I'm based here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm the owner of the Mozzie brand here, and welcome to this video, and I hope you enjoy it. It's a story about how I got to where I am today. I've been in Seoul, South Korea now for 13 years coming up. Originally I'm from a town called Palmerston North, which is from the central North Island of New Zealand. My background ethnically is my mother is European from England and Scotland, and my father is part European, part Maori. So Maori being the indigenous people of New Zealand. So I grew up in the countryside just out of Palmerston North. I spent my youth down at the river or working on farms, and then I went to Mass University and did a business degree. From that business degree, I almost joined the police, but I got offered a scholarship working in agriculture and horticulture. And with that scholarship, I was exposed to cropping. And from there, I met a lot of people in the wine industry. And once I came to Korea, that's where I sort of developed a desire to get into wine because I saw there was a gap in the market here. And from my experience back in New Zealand, that's when I set up the company. I never actually thought about leaving New Zealand and traveling, but after my experience in Europe, I'd also traveled to Cyprus, Italy, Belgium, Switzerland, and I saw that it was a big world. And coming from my small country town, I decided I needed to get out and go have a look around. What I decided in the end is I didn't want to go to the traditional routes, which was a lot of New Zealanders tend to do a year in the UK because they speak English, or the US or Canada. I wanted to go somewhere that was a little bit challenging and I could get a bit more experience. So I decided Asia was the place I wanted to go. I looked at Japan, Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Singapore, and China. At the time, the best place to go was probably Japan, but that was the most difficult to get a job. And the second best place to go financially, because of the exchange rate and because of the easy it was to get a job here, was Korea. So I applied for some jobs in Korea through an agency. So I'll let you know how I ended up getting into business. So I taught at a kindergarten. I was there for 6 months actually. And after 6 months, I realized that the school was not treating me that well. So I quit that job and I got a better job closer, working better hours and making more money. And that was at a public school. I taught there for a year. I'd met somebody that I started to date in Seoul. And at that time, I really was at a crossroads of deciding whether I was going to do business or teaching. I didn't want to be a teacher. Teaching was just a way of paying the bills and keep me in Korea and giving me a visa. I decided that there was a gap in some industries around New Zealand products, and I felt like wine was a particular one. I'd seen in the supermarkets, it was full of Chilean wine, French wine, other European wines, but New Zealand was such a small segment. And I knew from my experience that New Zealand had such good wine and Koreans didn't know anything about it. So I actually approached a few Koreans at the time that I thought could be potential partners, because I knew straight away I didn't have the language or the ability to set up a company. But then I actually met a girl who I was semi-dating, seeing at the time, and I pitched her the idea and she was all for it. She had spent some time in Europe, so she'd traveled abroad. She was working for a German marketing company at the time. She said to me, let's do it. I'm going to quit my job. She had a really good, well-paying job, and I'm going to set up the company and we'll do it together. And that was in mid-2008. And she quit her job, set up the wine company. I went back to New Zealand and I started going around and talking to some of the wine producers. And from there, I built my first company. So we set that company up, and actually, we didn't have any experience. We didn't do any market research. So all the things that you should do, we had a very vague business plan. We were running on pure hype. We had adrenaline, or we just had passion to do it. And her and I set this company up. So many mistakes, so stupid, lost a lot of money, but just keep going, keep going. No wasn't an answer. If I set that company up now, I would have done things totally different. So the other mistake I made is when I set that up, I didn't have a proper visa. So she was Korean, so everything was put in her name. No contract, no agreement, nothing. At the time, some people warned me, you should set this up properly, but I said, no, I trust her 100%. And I did, I trusted her 100%, and she trusted me. That's why we set it up. Fast forward 7 years later, we separated. And the relationship soured, and we sat next to each other at work, and the company was doing well. but the relationship wasn't. And I didn't really have a leg to stand on. So eventually I took my bag and I walked out of the company and I turned my computer off and I said, see you later. So I was heartbroken. It took me at least a year to build up the courage to leave that company. Because when I was looking around at all the wine, and we'd expanded at that time to other products, syrups, cereals, snacks, we'd grown quite big. We had, I think, 8 staff at the time, 3 vehicles, a warehouse. So it got really big. And I was heartbroken because I had to leave all that and walk away because I felt like I didn't own it. And after that I said, okay, I spent all my time the last 7 years building other people's brands. I built these wine brands, I developed them, and then I'd walked away and I didn't have any ownership. So I thought, how am I going to have ownership? The only way to do that is to develop my own brand. That's when I set up Mozzie. Setting up Mozzie, first visa. So I called my uncle, who was a diplomat. He was an ambassador to many countries from New Zealand, and I explained my situation to him, and he said to me, there's actually a scholarship you can get from the Prime Minister in New Zealand. They're really targeting Asian languages for New Zealand citizens around business. So I asked if that's where I could apply for, and he said, yep, you can apply for that. I had a good relationship with the New Zealand ambassador in Korea at the time because I was the chairman of the New Zealand Chamber of Commerce. So I asked him for a letter, and he wrote me a very nice letter, which I submitted for the application for the scholarship, which I received. So my study at Yonsei University was fully funded by the New Zealand government. Thank you, New Zealand government. So I got a student visa. So the visa was checked off, and I was studying, and it gave me some time to set up this company. I knew some guys that were importing New Zealand beer at the time, and I was also going to build a restaurant with the Mozzie brand. So I built this restaurant, got some investors. They were supplying beer. I also said to the guys, you're importing beer, can I put some wine in your container at the same time? I didn't have enough volume coming in to ship my own container, but I could share containers with them. And I didn't have a license. I needed an import license, and I wasn't legal because I was a student. They would agree to ship my wine in their containers, process it through their licensing, and then they would also sell it to restaurants and bars for me, and they would just clip the ticket along the way. So I had everything set up. It was kind of a botched job that I'd thrown together. It wasn't the most simple system, but I had a system, and it was a start. So I started doing that. The Mozzie bar, after 2 years, I realized wasn't going to make the money that I was investing my time into, and I got offered the opportunity to open this place, Kuing, the restaurant we're sitting in right now. So I decided to close that restaurant and open this one and continue working on the wine project. And then I'd finished studying at Yonsei. So my language ability had increased significantly. And this is what I said going back to the start. I wish I'd studied earlier because it changed my entire life, working, being able to speak Korean. You guys know how I went from using the importing company and using their license to actually owning it. What happened in 2019, the guys that were importing the New Zealand beer, they came to me and they said that their business wasn't profitable. So they said they had 2 options. They were going to sell the business to someone else, well, 3 options, close it down or sell it to me. So actually I didn't initially want to import beer. I didn't see it as a market I wanted to be in. It's a very saturated market, it needs a lot of capital, and it wasn't my own brand. I was more interested in focusing on the Mozzie wines. But I didn't have an option. I needed that license to import. So I reflected on what I was going to do, and I thought, okay, I need to find a partner. So I approached a friend of mine who had a restaurant in Itaewon, and he was a Kiwi Korean. And I said to him, I'm thinking about buying this company. Are you interested in coming and harvesting me? So we both decided that we were going to buy this business. So we came up with a good price. All the money that I'd earned from previously selling wine, delivering on scooters, and saved up, I generated enough capital to purchase half the company, and then my other business partner come and purchase half the company. What I'd learned from my first company is that contracts are important. So the first thing I did is I saw a lawyer, and we drew up a contract and we signed that contract. The second thing I did is I trademarked Mozzie in New Zealand under my name, and I also trademarked it in Korea. So taking over the brand, we got this beer, we got the wine, inherited everything, cleaning up the mess. First I said to my partner, when we set up the company, we're not going to pull any money out of the company for 6 months. And a lot of people, they really are scared of that idea of working for free for 6 months, but this is the entrepreneurial lifestyle. You have to invest time and money, and you're not going to get anything out. So these are the products we have currently. but these are the 2020 vintages, and in 2021 I've changed the entire branding. So we've gone for a new label. So you can see in the background here, might not be very clear, but the 2021, we reached out to a very famous designer to work on some new label designs for us, and they'll be coming into the market as of next month. The future of Mozzie, going really well actually. It's exceeding expectations. The brand is really well recognized and we have a lot of demand. So just on my time in Korea and my time in the market, the advice I would give to anybody wanting to set up in country is to first, if they don't speak English, is to learn the language. One small regret that I have that I wish I'd done earlier is study the language more. That just means working a bit harder and focusing on that. In the back of my mind, I thought I didn't need it, but the more I learn the language, the easier I find my life is getting in Korea, so I highly recommend that. Also is finding your own way of doing things. As my mate is going to come join it. We're a small company, and like I said, we have small budgets, so we have to be nimble and flexible. We cannot compete with the big wine companies. We cannot compete with the multinationals that are here. But what we do have is flexibility. We can move very quickly and we can adapt to change fast. So rolling out a new product is very quick for us. Finding a product doesn't work and changing very quickly. It works for us more than others. And we actually don't need to deliver the wine ourselves anymore. I don't need to go and see the customers. I can outsource everything. We have a system on the computer where we put it in and a logistics company delivers it. But I like going and seeing the customer because the customer is my point of sales. So when I meet them, they give me instantaneous feedback. I process that and I put it straight into the business model. For example, they said to me, we're really looking for a red natural wine. I got that from the customer being the wine shop and the restaurant. And then instantaneous, I'm on the phone to New Zealand. Can you guys produce this for me? Okay, these are the sort of numbers we need to look at. So the speed at which we can put something through is much faster than any of the big companies. So that's our advantage, that's our leverage that we have over everybody else. Thank you for listening to my story, and please stay tuned for the next video of Foreign Hero.